So, of course, now we're looking at having to score to try to win this. And the momentum has been all with South Africa, the whole of this match. So how are we going to regather the momentum? Like I said at the beginning, I had a bit of a sense of trepidation. They could have folded, given that they'd lost a 10-point lead and were now facing a 4-point deficit in South Africa, in Durban, where South Africa had not lost in 8 years. Enter Master Frawley. And I think the catalyst, and before anybody says anything, yes, I have a man crush. I've had it for ages. On Frawley, I think he's Johnny Sexton's natural successor. But I'm sure we'll talk about that at another time. He actually, the Saffers get a penalty. They go for touch. He manages to do what, well, no, I was going to say what James Lowe was unable to do. He manages to do what James Lowe was able to do, but there was no Cheslin Colby chasing him down. So he gets the ball, passes it to Jamie Osborne. Jamie Osborne pings it, and we get, or they get, the line out between the 10 and the 22. It's a poor line out from us, but we get a pen for holding on. So we go to the corner, get a free kick, we tap and go, we're held up, and then there is the pragmatism that we haven't necessarily learned to associate with, certainly not with Leinster, but not with Ireland either. But the drop goal is back, clearly. So the next best thing, because we get held up, it's a goal line dropout, collected, passed to Frawley, who has all the time in the world, and that's the sign of a good player. When a good player has time on the ball, you know that clearly he knows what he's doing, and he goes over with a wonderful drop goal from way past the 10-meter line. And like I said, the narrative had changed then already in this match. Now we were on the front foot. Now we were going forward. Now we were trying to create things. In no small measure to Frawley. He actually tries a crossfield kick, which doesn't come off, which could have knocked his confidence. It didn't. Then for the next 5-8 minutes, it's extremely tight between both sides. Extremely tight in terms of territory. It's pretty much between the two 10-meter lines. But then they knock on after they attack, and we're within our 22. There is a scrum. We take the ball from the scrum. Frawley runs forward with the ball and then kicks, fully intended, a beautiful grubber kick along the ground. He weights it perfectly so that Feinberg has to field the ball. And, the pressure was there from the chase. And in effect, what happens is that we get a field position well within their half. And of course, the rest is history. We win the line out. A couple of phases later, we move inbounds towards the midfield and eventually blade back to Kieran Frawley, who has the biggest cojones in the world, clearly, not least in the context of the drop goal miss in the Heineken Champions Cup final. And he puts it over, and fuck him, basically, because not least because, and I've watched this on many occasions today, the shenanigans by Snyman, to a degree, when he tries to bump Joe McCarthy. Joe McCarthy either didn't see him or saw him and went, moved his body, and Snyman would have looked idiotic. I mean, he isn't the smallest person. He would have looked idiotic trying to clunk into a excuse me, a departing Joe McCarthy. But the worst one was Colby. Colby tries to bounce off Caelan Doris, and then he does a Neymar and rolls all the way to land at the feet of Finlay Beelan, who looks at him with absolute disgust, as he should. Whilst Kieran Frawley is slotting the drop goal. So yeah, that was full time. Dixon was asked the question by 76,000 bloody South Africans on the pitch. He asked the TMO. TMO saw nothing wrong with any of that, and Bob is your uncle. Full-time whistle, and we beat them.
Yeah, I mean it's another half just full of talking points, and like you say, culminate at the end. Just the things to add to to that sequence at the end. I mean, Frawley just basically stole the show himself. But there was at the start of that move, there was that catch from James Lowe and Mark, and then just the quick tap and running out of his 22. Yep. That's another example. I say this every time he plays. He doesn't just there's what you're expected to do, and there's what James Lowe does. He always tries to go one level up. What the basic thing you're expected, even in test level rugby, the most basic thing, your fundamental thing you do. Normally, you just catch it, mark it fine, take a beat, boot it as far as you can. But he's not going to do that. He takes a quick tap. He's got 10 Springboks in front of him. He knows they can't touch him. Yep. So he's past them, and he's basically set up that momentum that had us down that end of the pitch. Yep. But also there were 2 scrums in that final 10 minutes that were absolutely key. Now, you don't remember them because nothing happened, but that's the point. You know what I mean? It's like it was they locked out. We were in trouble at scrum time all through the match. We were getting pinged left, right, and center for all sorts of reasons that didn't seem to make sense. But for those 2, they were golden, and then which allowed to give Frawley the platform to do what he did. What did you make of it, Connor?
Yeah, look, it was a very, very, again, hectic, frantic pace, just constant movement, constant pressure on both sides. And again, just the defense was enormous. Absolutely incredible defense that anytime they came towards us, the efforts made to make sure that, okay, maybe we give away 3 here, but that's all they're getting. And more often than not, we weren't even giving that away. You know, we did really well to any team that has to rely on 8 penalties to try and win without really demonstrating any opportunities to score over the entire game. And all the pressure they had, particularly in that second half, because they had much, much more pressure in the second half. I think we got towards 36, 37 minutes. And a stat popped up on the screen to suggest that we'd had 66% of the possession after 35, 36 minutes. So, you know, they weren't getting the opportunities in the first half. They definitely had them in the second half. They had lots of opportunity in the second half to be creative, to do something and see what they could create. And just no opportunity. And I think I was so pleased that, forget the fact that he landed the drop goals. I was so pleased to see Kieran Frawley come on and play that well. To play to a standard that is international test level 10. You know, anyone looking at his progress, anyone looking at the kind of player he is and suggesting that maybe he's not good enough to play 10 for whoever is clearly making a mistake. And I think it's one of the things that Andy Farrell has done so well over the last couple of years, is that he's seeing something in players that, because he's not as blinkered, I think, you know, provincial coaches, they have the week in, week out, we have been playing you here, we will continue to play you here, we will continue to play you this way. And I say, just, it can become blinkered. And I don't think it's intentional. I don't think anyone's planning to stunt anybody or anything else by these actions. I think just what's happening is that they're just blinded by necessity within the group and what they can do. Whereas Farrell is looking at players and saying, I'm going to bring you in and we're going to do something a little different. And you look at just the 2 good examples, one being Jemison Gibson Park, who was not first choice scrum half for Leinster when he started playing for Ireland. And the difference he has made. Let's look at Kieran Frawley and how he played at the weekend. Let's throw in Jamie Osborne on top of that. Let's throw in how well Calvin Nash is playing now that he's, and we're seeing how well he's playing in a context that's very different to provincial rugby because he's in this test atmosphere. Look at the progress Finlay Bealham has made over the last couple of years. 2 years ago, you might have said, let's hope Ty can last 60 minutes and see how Finlay goes for that last 20. Whereas let's look back to the Six Nations and say, look how well Finlay Bealham played for 60 minutes. And when he was then replaced by somebody else, and the progression of players. And I think this game really sums up how players are progressing under Andy Farrell and under what he's creating as I suppose I want to call it his legacy. Every coach leaves their legacy and leaves their mark on a team, and he's creating an environment where these players clearly believed they could win. That whatever any of the rest of us thought, or however much we were worried, the defensive structures he has in place for the team work. The attacking systems that he's developing along with his coaches work. Everything's working. He's building something incredibly strong within the group. There's trust there. There's knowledge. Players like Jamie Osborne makes that tackle in the first half, and he's got Quagga Smith to contend with, who may very well have decided, well, I'm going to put the ball down, I'm going to stand up, and I'm going to run over you. But there are two players getting there to support him. And I think the players really believe in what they're doing. You see the result when we win. And like before the drop goal, the ball goes out to touch, and you see Kieran Frawley. You can see what he says. You don't have to be an expert lip reader to see the words drop goal in what he says. Like, we have a plan now, lads. We are going to win this. We can make this happen. Give me 2 phases. Get me that ball.
Yeah, it was early in the set as well, wasn't it? It was, they could have taken it a few more, but no, they were ready to go. Yeah.
The confidence. And I think, wherever that confidence has come from, and whether it's the confidence that says, geez, I missed one earlier in the season, I'm not doing that again. Or maybe it's a coach who has a little word in the ear saying, geez, that was bloody close. Let's see a bit more of that. Let's see what else you can do. There's faith in those players coming from the top down. And it's really shown in like I said, in everything they did, particularly in that second half, when they had the ball that little to still come out with the win. There's a lot of quality there. And I think fair play to Andy Farrell for looking past whatever else is going on anywhere else. He picks the team he believes will do the job. He puts players in positions. And I know lots of people might have looked and said, geez, he put Peter O'Mahony on the bench, and O'Mahony came on and he played well. He did everything that was required of him. You cannot for a second criticize his commitment or his willingness.
Rich said in his bit that the game changed at the 55th minute, and that's actually the moment O'Mahony came on, and that's nothing against Josh. It's a different kind. It's a different. He comes on, and it's the leadership he brings on, and just his presence on the pitch was just what we needed. We always knew that was his role on the day, and he did it well.
There's nothing wrong with the players who started. The fact that, again, I can't imagine at any stage Peter O'Mahony sitting in a room somewhere going, I'm not getting started, and this is shit, and I'm not getting, and we'll see that talk online, like how dare that decision. But he buys into it. He buys into the plan. And he knew what he had to do coming on to make sure that plan worked. I also think massive shout out to Caelan Blade, who might not have ever thought his opportunity would come with who's ahead of him. And I think he's probably looked and said, geez, I've kind of looked out here with 2 injuries, but here's my shot. And, that pass is anything other than accurate. We're not scoring either of those drop goals. They're pinpoint, because he knows what's expected of him. And I think the trust that's being put in the players for the systems, and I know we're not going to have Andy Farrell all year, but all those players know how to do the job.
Absolutely.
So, it's going to be, there's a lot of positives still to come from this group of players.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting the way you sort of listed, as well as Osborne and Frawley. You went back as far as Gibson Park as well. So it's almost like Farrell is a sort of a scout for the provinces, finding players for their own team. Because I mean, we've got our Ireland hats on now, but obviously at some stage we're talking about Leinster. We're going to be thinking, well, Frawley and Osborne, how can you not pick them for Leinster? Going forward. But then you look at we've got Keenan coming back. We've got Jordy Barrett coming in, and there's all these big decisions to be made with these players. So there's a lot of discussions to go ahead. But listen, on the day, it was a great finish. We were always in it. The South Africans came back strong in the second half, but like I say, they were a man down for a while, and they were sort of killing us death by 1,000 threes. It looked like, but we always stayed within them, and we Ireland don't do drop goals generally. But here we got two to win a great test. So, like you say, the final score was South Africa 24, Ireland 25.